Yeah, so I'm John Morrison. I head up FinTech Business Development at AWS. And today we're going to talk about go-to-market secrets. So Matt kind of previewed it at the top of the conference. To kick it off, I'm going to have Roland introduce himself, tell us a bit about what he does, and then also what was the first product you ever sold or marketed?
My name is Roland Lantenberg. I'm one of the co-founders of House Call Pro. Wow, the first product I've ever sold? Like as an individual or a House Call Pro?
Either.
House Call Pro, probably the first individual was just buying a plumber coffee at Starbucks, asked him to sit down, and I sold it to him. He was paying us $4 a month. He was just getting started as a plumber. Now he has 22 trucks, doing about $5.5 million in revenue on our platform. He's org ID number 4 in our system, still active and paying, and he's doing really well. That was a close little first thing I sold.
Can go down the line here and do introductions. That would be great.
So I'm Bruno. I lead marketing at Clay. I've been there for close to 2 years. Before that, I led growth marketing at Webflow.
Cool. I'm David. I'm one of the co-founders of DataLane. You can think about us as kind of like the go-to-market data layer for companies that sell to local businesses, whether that's restaurants, dentists, HVAC contractors. And yeah, we work with DoorDash, Square, ServiceTitan, Lightspeed, and many others that are very focused on selling to local business. So excited to talk about that.
Hey, Kyle Norton. I'm the CRO at Owner.com. You can think of us as Shopify for restaurants. Been there 3 years, and first product I ever sold was pizzas. Funny enough, selling to restaurants again.
Full circle.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, I really wanted to kind of kick this off with a question that I see a lot of the customers at AWS talk to us about is they're often trying an AI SDR, figuring out how to integrate it for the first time, super excited about it, maybe drove by the billboard on the 101 and saw, Piper or someone else be really kind of convincing. And then about 2-3 weeks in, they're like, oh, we don't know how to make this work. And so for each of you, if you were to kind of have that conversation with a company you're advising or working with, what would be the fundamental building blocks that you would say they need to start with?
Don't start with an AI SDR.
Thank you.
I think I'm going to get a lot of agreement as we go this way. For us, the first things that we did, and it was more organic than hyper-intentional, but now looking back, I can clearly articulate the journey that I think companies should go on. It's really just foundations. It's first-party and third-party data. Do you have good third-party data to understand your market, where your ICP is, the account information, contact information? Do you have mobile phone numbers for who you want to spend time with? And figuring out how you acquire that data, we're a customer of DataLane. Lots of people use Clay for different reasons, and that is step one. Don't bother with all the fancy AI use cases and the stuff that gets buzz, but figure out your third-party foundations. Then first-party data, which is capturing information across your customer journey from your BDR, AE, customer success reps. Do you have a system to take unstructured data from across this customer journey, website visits and interactions, or stuff from demo transcripts, and to find a way to bring structure to that, either directly into Salesforce, or we put a lot of stuff into Snowflake. We use a platform called Momentum to do that, but there's other solutions. And once you have those two things, first-party and third-party data, now you can do lots of interesting stuff, because AI is a pattern recognition machine, and if you're feeding it accurate inputs and accurate patterns, now we can build AI avatar customer journeys that are actually reliable, or we can create email content en masse, or we can support customers in the post-sales journey. But you need those two things first.
I think that covers a lot of it, honestly. The only pieces I would add, make sure to understand what's different about your vertical specifically, especially with these topics like AI SDRs, et cetera. Most of the companies we work with that are selling into these spaces, it is such a mess. The TAM is giant. There's millions of accounts. Many of those accounts have the same name. Which one were you talking about, Roland? I think it's
A1 carpet cleaning?
A1 carpet cleaner, Joe's Pizza, mainstream mover, you name it. It's a very messy universe, and if you just try to run AI over a ton of messy data when you don't have third-party and first-party figured out, you need the foundations first, so totally agree.
Yeah, I think like one kind of like framework that we have at Clay is like it's basically, we have kind of this pyramid of needs where the foundation of the pyramid is like exactly what Kyle mentioned is these structured data points. Then you need complete relevant data in the foundation. Then you can layer AI on top to leverage that data. I think, and then the top is how you activate the data at the channel level, right? And I think like those are the actual shiny and sexy things, and people see that I actually can activate that data with an AI SDR or like blast a bunch of emails or create a ton of ads or something like this. But as soon as you do that at that level without the infrastructure, you burn through your TAM and you like the reputation. You kind of burn your reputation as well. But yeah, I think the data foundation and then layering AI on top is like the main thing to focus on.
Yeah, I'd agree with all the things, but I take a different tack to it, which is start with just founder intuition and then work in your customer's office. And because those things will infer what things you should be collecting and looking at and tuning into and hearing. So before you can even start with your own first party and third party data, it's like, what the hell are you gonna go get first? And a lot of those things, the vernacular, the verbiage, the things people talk about, how they spend their day, when they wake up, what are they doing? Are they listening to, talk radio 8 a.m., and like, where do they go next? Do they go to the coffee store? I just happened to see a bunch of service trucks at Starbucks, and so I'll be like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. Like they're getting their caffeine on before they go out on the jobs. And so you gotta really truly understand that customer before you can even start thinking about, where do I get all the data? Where can I find all of the plumbers? Just find one, or just find 10. And if you're not doing that as a founder or comfortable to do that, you should probably rethink the strategy, because it's really easy to jump to these next steps and be like, I heard everything about Clay. I should just be using Clay for all the. Yeah, sure, but like, what are you gonna go get? So teach yourself that first.
Yeah, and I think like just to double down on this really quickly is that like when you talk to your best customer and like really understand, I think for verticals you have to understand the very unique data point that you need to get, and AI is actually helpful in actually scaling this, but you have to really understand the customer first and to find what's the exact data point that you want to double down on.
Yeah, agreed.
Great, thank you. I think there's a few companies here that have customers that are very passionate about their products. And I wanted to understand a little bit more about how you guys cultivate kind of a strong customer community and kind of build that relationship. I think, Clay, Owner, House Call Pro all kind of have that. And so maybe, we start with Owner and kind of go down the line, and I'd love to kind of learn a little bit more about how you guys have done that over the years.
So a lot of this, to take a step back, is about understanding what compounds and builds moat over time, because I think like fundamentally people don't invest in community because it has a very long payoff time horizon. And this was, going back to Roland, this was a founder intuition. Our founder just had this gut instinct. He's like, there's nobody that people trust in restaurant marketing. We want to go build a big brand and be a vendor that is more than that. We say like, we wanted to build a movement, and we felt like we could own that space. But we had to figure out like, what was that angle and what did the customer feel and want from thought leadership and content and community, and we found a niche, and for our customer, they're on YouTube. They're not on LinkedIn. They're not going to go to stuff like this. And so we have like the biggest YouTube following in restaurant marketing, and people come inbound like ready to swipe a credit card just because they've been watching the YouTube and they love Adam, and like people will stop him in the street and be like, oh, you're the restaurant guy from YouTube, and they don't even totally know sometimes that it's Owner. And so that worked for us. But going back, like Roland made such a good point, like where do these people live, and what is that wedge that doesn't exist? And so we leaned all the way into it, and now that we're more sophisticated on the data side, we can see just how much organic assists every other channel. When we're doing a ton of organic, or when a bunch of organic is getting lots of reach, we can see our meta ads and Google ads, like everything starts converting better, and we have some good feedback there. But for us, like that organic play that we've been working on for 2.5 years that did not pay off for the first 6, 9, 12 months has really become like a compounding advantage for us because people are attaching themselves to this movement. With Owner very much as a brand, like in the background. We try not to talk about Owner like very much at all.
I think one thing that's interesting just to add to that is I get to see it working with dozens of companies in these spaces, and you can just, like you mentioned on the ads piece, but also outbound is so much more effective if you've just done that work ahead of time. And the second order effect is interesting, like the channels you can activate to reach your customers if you know you're going to have a better conversion because you've done this hard work. It's just different than what competitors have available because the conversion is going to be lower. So I think that's been really interesting to see working with some of the brands that have invested very heavily in this space is just how it compounds across all channels, even just the high velocity like outbound calling that you guys do. It's so much more effective when combined with the community.
Yeah, I think for us on the community side is, I think taking a step back too, like our product itself is such a flexible product where like you can bring in like a bunch of different types of data sources, data enrichments as well, and then layer in AI on top of it. So because of the flexibility of the product, we naturally started to attract a lot of service providers because now with Clay, they can serve like many more clients. They can build stuff that they would never be able to build for only companies like Owner or Rippling or Ramp could actually build like that level of infrastructure. But so that naturally translates into you showcasing as a service provider what you build to the world. And for us, they spend time on LinkedIn. So for, as a marketing function, was like, how can we actually build this community that enables them to, one, share these workflows and then grow their business. We actually pay a lot of attention to how much money they are making on top of Clay, so we can actually continue to grow the ecosystem of Clay over time. But it starts with the flexibility and easy and the adoption of the product as a self-serve product, and then you can layer the distribution on the community side.
Yeah, I think communities just, I mean, we started our community back in 2017 before like community-led growth was like a thing. And it just happened very organically, and it was just, it was a Facebook group. We decided Facebook, even not just because we liked the platform, because it locks all your data, but because that's where our pros are. They're on Facebook groups. They're talking a bunch of smack in like HVAC talk groups, and like they're ripping on each other for like their crappy, electrical panel wiring. And so anyways, we just kind of were like, oh, they're there on Facebook, let's start our own group and let's just use it as a feedback channel. And what it really became was, our pros, our customers, talking to one another, giving feedback about our product, really engaging, and really, myself being very active in there, making sure your customers feel like heard and seen, and then delivering on the things that they say. And those things kind of combined together work really well with your existing customer base. And then long term, the value community is like, we don't really like to sell our product if we can have our customers sell our product to their end customers. And so we see this all the time. A plumber will be doing a job at an electrician's house, and it says like powered by Housecall Pro underneath, and they're like, what are you using? What's that thing? And they're selling it to each other. And so community allows you to build it so that they're selling each other on your product whatsoever. And if you can just provide like a little bit of a safe space, a little bit of kindling, a little bit of a meeting place, things like this, conferences we used to do, over 52 meetups every single month in every single city in the US with our customers, led by our super pros, which are our biggest evangelists, like creating these like watering holes. So if you guys are thinking about building moats, or is that kind of the title of this panel, is like, how can you help build those watering holes where you can connect the folks? If you can do that, they can tell stories to one another. They'll be like, hey, did you do this payroll add-on, or are you using Housecall Pro's like business financing? Did you ever try that that pipe loan? How was it? Was it expensive? Was it not? And they talk to each other rather than us trying to be like, well, we see your low in cash flow. You should use our financing product. And then they're like, that's creepy, But yeah, community offers just so many benefits, but it is a very hard thing to go allocate resources for, or even hire for out of the gate, because ROI is just is difficult to capture in the right way, especially just capturing like organic direct hits. How do you attribute all of that? Super difficult, but absolutely something you should be thinking about doing.
Great. It kind of is a nice lead into like, what do you think are the nuances of really selling into local and vertical markets? I think maybe David, start with you, since you kind of have a broad overview of the market, and love to kind of hear examples, Kyle and Roland and others.
Yeah, so I think there's a decent amount of similarities across just these local business verticals to begin with, in that if you're selling to knowledge workers, many of those people will live on LinkedIn. You're going to be able to use traditional tools. You're going to be able to leverage like AI SDRs and all these things that are being talked about. But as we started the panel with, like, if you're selling into a vertical, you have to deeply understand the vertical, and then you need to set up your go-to-market function and tech stack so that it also deeply understands your vertical as well. And I think the biggest thing that you can probably elaborate on here is just how much you should be raising the expectations in terms of what is possible now to customize to your vertical, because AI has gotten so good. So in the past, you would just say like, oh, it sucks, like nobody's built specifically for my vertical, like I can't get the data points I care about, whether it's number of locations, POS, solopreneurs, auto repair versus auto collision. Like it gets very specific so that you can actually identify the best customers, make sure your sales teams are effective. And I think that's the big change that's happening right now, is it's so much more customized, and this can make your sales motion so much more effective. And I think there's some good examples of that you've seen at Owner.
Yeah, I would say the thing that we've done the most is, because we're selling into a massive market, there's hundreds of thousands of customers in our ICP. You can deeply segment and score and enrich and understand and be really targeted with your approach across all channels. And so we can figure out across all of these different data points exactly who are going to be the highest converting, highest retention, highest value customers for us, and put our outbound BDR team at like very, very targeted lists and get very good pattern matching, and everything is built to take advantage of large numbers. So we can bring in a whole ton of information and understand what cold call openers work, what is the exact right time to first touch, because interestingly enough, if the time to first touch was too fast, it was lower converting than if the time to first touch was like 4 minutes to 8 minutes, because I think under 4 minutes like felt creepy, but like 4 to 8 was right. And you can't do a lot of this stuff selling into mid-market because you don't have the volume. But selling into big vertical SaaS markets, the major advantage is just the number of instances and at-bats. And so we've steered very, very hard into the instrumentation across RevOps and our data ops team to finely tune every little piece of the journey and treat it more like a growth marketing engine than a sales engine in a lot of ways. So for us, that's been like the big advantage that's driven so much efficiency.
Roland, I know you found a hack earlier on in the life of House Call Pro that got 100% hit rate in terms of callback. I would love to kind of learn a little bit about that and how you got there.
Yeah, I mean, we've tried so many different ways to go to market and to reach our customers, and at the end of the day, sometimes you just need to be able to open the door to a conversation, and then from there you can take it in many different ways. And so we've tried things like, sending them a picture of their own truck, because if you're looking on the highway, do this. I mean, you all probably drive or commute or go somewhere, but look on the highway, 1 in 13, 1 in 12 trucks or so is going to be a service truck, but look at all of them. A lot of them don't have websites on them. Some will just be a phone number. I guess here in Silicon Valley, there are probably more websites on them. But if you look at the rest of the United States, you'll just see a lot of just phone numbers in places. And those are ones you can't find no matter what you try to do on Clay, unless you're tapping into feeds that are federal feeds that show the camera of bridges and cars passing it, and you're extracting those images and pulling those phone numbers and enriching them. Anyways, there's lots of ways. There's lots of ways to get in front of your customers, and sometimes you have to be creative in how you reach out to them. And if you come from a place of really wanting to help them, they'll be able to detect it. In the home services space, I always joke a little bit, but our pros, maybe they don't go to college, or maybe some do. Some come from PE, or they have MBAs and they don't want to go to McKinsey, and they're like, I'm gonna buy a plumbing business. But I digress. But they're ultimate bullshit detectors, and so you don't come across with like honesty and truth and truly wanting to help. They detect that on a phone call right away. Even if you use creative ways to get their attention. And in our field of work, our customers, they have to answer the phone. That is the lifeblood of their business. So it's a great way for us to reach them, and we do a lot of it, millions of it, every single month. It works well.
Awesome. I'd love for you guys to kind of put your prediction hat on in kind of the world of AI in San Francisco that we sit in, and think about, like, in 24 months, how is the structure of the go-to-market organization going to change? How do you think people will be building go-to-market functions? I think you kind of alluded to everything is becoming more like growth marketing. I'm curious to kind of pull on that thread a bit. We have a head of marketing on the panel as well, so I'm curious his thoughts as well.
You go first, Bruno. You are plugged in more than anybody.
I think like there's some companies that are kind of we're already doing this. Like I think Owner is a good example of. I think the future will be where there are going to be. I think from a growth marketing point of view, I think I come from a growth marketing background. I led growth marketing at Webflow before this, but I think the function will sort of like blend with ops. The best growth marketing teams are actually the ones that are actually a mix of ops and growth marketing. Because I think growth marketing evolved into this weird role where you're just managing Facebook ads and search ads, but the best teams are actually the ones that are super deep into the systems. And now I firmly believe that we're going to have this org that it's responsible for building the systems and that are very AI native, that will then serve the sellers and the actual like the more creative functions. And so we're going to have this like automation heavy, and we can already see some companies doing this. For example, we have like deep insights on like how some of these most sophisticated companies operate. But like Canva is one example, right? They have like AI and workflow pros on this like ops heavy team that serve the actual sellers and the more creative functions. So I think we're gonna have the sort of more like the centralization of that function that will then serve, and then sellers will focus on the actual selling part. And then you can call like that function whatever you want. It's like go-to-market engineers or whatever makes sense for you. But I think we're going to see that centralization of AI, native workflows, and operations serving the other world.
I think that's really interesting because like where it is today with most customers we start working with, if you just take the junior sellers in those orgs, they're spending 30, 40% of their week doing manual account research, DQing accounts that aren't a fit, trying to figure out a way to get in touch with decision makers, like all of these like base level activities. And I would be skeptical that we go like full AI SDR, but I think what's going to happen is like some of those jobs to be done that are like part of the seller's week are going to get removed by either data teams or eventually orchestration layers as well. So I think it's not going to 100% change, but large portions of the task will be reallocated.
Yeah, the hope is that sellers can do more selling.
Exactly.
This is the mission we've been on. I'm not trying to replace sellers with AI today, but I'm trying to take as many of the things that are not customer-facing, value-generating, and do it centrally. Like to Bruno's point, there's also this reorganization that's happening in go-to-market where sales is more like growth, and now we're doing this GTM engineering thing, but like our data team is just as much a part of our go-to-market strategy as like anything else. And so there's so many lines that are blurring between these different functions, which I think we're going to have to get really good at. And somebody in go-to-market is going to have to set the strategy, and you're going to have to be able to pull in data engineering and data ops resources, and then that's going to have to hand off to the growth marketing team, because like we're not going to power outbound email anymore. Like outbound email used to be BDRs sending cadenced emails, but like now that's actually in growth marketing, and now sales is becoming something different. And so there's a reorganization of what is happening in go-to-market. And the advice I give to people is you just have to pull everybody together, worry much less about the org chart, and just think about the jobs to be done. So if you think more generally about, okay, now as I think about who to call, what to say, how to do it, execution, follow-up, all these things are just jobs to be done, and you can now plot that out across a different org chart. So like list building used to be reps or maybe RevOps, and now that's the data team. Mm-hmm. And emailing is now growth. And our sales reps actually do more of the onboarding journey and the handoff. And so like everything is shifting. And so I think just coming back to like what are the jobs to be done in order to serve the customer and in order to run this manufacturing process, this like revenue manufacturing process, we should just have like a really open mind about what that looks like.
Yeah, to pull on a little bit of a different string, I think just in general, if I had to pick one thing, there should be no one message that is the same that ever gets sent out. Every single touch point, everything should be hyper-personalized because you can do that. Every person's got access to 1,000 interns in the back of their pocket that can craft an infinite amount of things, but you have to empower them to be able to do that. So I think that's gonna be the next, like, how do you empower them to do that themselves? But if you see a generic template going out or whatever, that should just be like a no-no. And so if you think from it from a culture perspective, how can you enable everybody to make sure like everything is unique to each person that they talk to? Because it can be. Previously, if you have a low ACV account, you can't spend the amount of time, like Kyle's saying, like it's a bunch of time. It's just you cannot possibly do it, but now you can, so why not? In the next couple of years, I'd be surprised if I see the same. I'm curious to see how deliverability is going to be affected and all these kind of things, but like I'm curious to see, which companies just stay with similar kind of a talk track, and which ones adopt, all the different possibilities of matrices of segmentation of their customer base, of their ICP, all the unique messages on an individual account level. And you can do this now. It's not 2 years from now. So I'm curious to see how many companies actually make that full transition.
How far along is House Call Pro in that journey?
We're noobs. I think like we always just we're very humble. Like we do a lot, but the world is. I mean, there's so much, and there's so many data points, and connecting it. I think when you grow really large, there's data living everywhere, and there's a big exercise of collecting where all the data lives, who has access to it. Is it in Snowflake? Is there an MCP server connected to it? Like, can you like access all the things? Like that's kind of the conversation we're having now, which is like, how can we? But independent of even having access to any of those things, you can still personalize a lot of the pieces independently as just an individual, if you so please, if you so want to, because it's out there. So I think, long way to go.
Awesome. What about Clay's go-to-market motion? I know they're kind of selling not as much into the local economy, but broadly across tech and B2B SaaS. Like, how does it look? What is the go-to-market engineer doing, and what tools are they using on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I think it's similar to, it's typically that person that it's responsible for building the system to drive revenue. So it's typically someone that takes somewhere like a growth marketing and experimentation approach, that you have the flexibility to actually test and experiment with like what are the different sources that I want to bring in, how can I enable AI on this, then launching that at a smaller scale, and then figuring out if you want to scale this. So for us specifically, we have our growth and ops team are basically combined, and we are the ones that actually building that function for us, and then for our own customers, we're the ones that actually implementing these things for them as well at a higher level.
One more comment on like where the future is going. I think something important to keep in mind is there's not a lot of alpha in doing what everybody's going to do. And like Roland, you mentioned deliverability rates. Like we've got all this AI stuff, and we can do all this mass personalization. But the same thing is going to happen now to a greater degree in the sales acceleration era. At the beginning of SalesLoft and Outreach, there was a crazy amount of alpha to being first and being able to send like semi-personalized outreach just at a massive scale, and then that quickly went away and doesn't really work anymore. And now really sophisticated companies, and interesting, like Clay of anybody should have the ability to like just carpet bomb with amazing messaging their whole market, and yet they're really leaning into community, and they're doing such a good job there, and it's a good proof point of going like counter-cyclical. And so, like where is everybody going to go? What are the trends? And then what are you going to do that's actually off-cycle? And so, like I think like the phone call is going to make this big resurgence, because people don't get nearly as many cold calls as we once did, or like organic might be a thing. Community could be a good pillar. Everybody's talking about like go to network, or like the partner model might be a big thing. And I think we just have to be really mindful of like following the herd and following like what's exciting on LinkedIn too much, because everybody's going to do it, and then there's like no alpha. There's so much opportunity like going counter to that.
But how do you balance that across, like, so many of the people who come to you and come to us say, we don't have any of the basics in place, so it's like a sequencing question too, like their reps are spending their time so inefficiently that yes, they have to find the alpha, I agree with that, but there's also just like so many easy wins that are missing. How would you like sequence between these?
So I think there is alpha in having great data, though. Like I think the traditional approach is you have an army of BDRs. They're all doing like mediocre research. They're all figuring out how to do their own stuff, and then they like outreach with mostly email. And what we're finding is that, hey, like, yeah, there's a lot of scale there. We're gonna have a team do it centrally, but actually we want everybody doing basically nothing but cold calling and texting. And that's what's going to work in our market. And like going counter, so most companies in our market try to sell door to door. Most of our direct competitors, Toast is like the sort of big behemoth in our market. Everybody's very local. And one of the things we've been intentional about doing is actually avoiding going local as much as everybody, like, you know, I get asked that question all the time. Oh, why don't you have reps like door knock, and why don't you set up local territories? Actually, we find a lot of advantage having all of the data at a very grand scale, segmented and scored and distributed in a way that like you can't. The conversion rate advantages of being local doesn't counteract. And so like our alpha and our counter cyclicality is actually being really digital in a market that typically sells like in a much more local fashion.
Yeah, I think the alpha piece is something that we think about quite a lot. Is like there's always that period of time where like the new tactic comes out, and then there's the efficiency skyrockets, and then over time that there's like this curve that the efficiency drops significantly and everything flattens down. So you need to be chasing like what's the new tactic that is going to help you achieve. But I also agree with you. You kind of have to have the fundamentals in place to be able to actually then experiment with new things.
The other thing that's making a comeback is brand.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, like everybody eschewed brand for years and years in SaaS, and brand is back in such a big way.
Yeah.
You know, especially when, you know, it's easy to start a company. It's easy to try to like get mass distribution, but like, what do you do in a market when there's like 12 YC startups that do what you do, and it's easy to be like a follow-on type of company? And so how do you think about now doing the things that are difficult and compound over longer periods of time?
It speaks a lot to me, because every day there's like, oh, I built a new clay, the cheap clay. But I think like what we chatted earlier on the community side, I think that's where like you have long-term gains because you have these people that are like, I have weekly calls with these partners, right? That I would kind of deep into them, like trying to understand how you grow your business, how can we help, and kind of go deep. I think that's brand, right? Like you have built that insane affinity with your partners.
Trust at scale.
Then like even if there's a competitor that's like same feature as you, they're not gonna switch because they're so bought into your brand and your ecosystem in general. But I think this is also becoming the next level of go-to-market alpha and stuff.
Yeah, and people are always trying to find people doing similar things to them so they can share it. Plumbers, you know, it's like a lonely world. So again, fostering that together is going to be something that, you know, everyone's going to be chasing, you know, all these other ways to reach out. But really, just if you can empower your own customers to help you get the other customers, it's going to be the easiest path to market that still a lot of people aren't even doing in a very thoughtful way. But it does, you have to be authentic about it, and people can really tell. Especially if it's like local SMB that you're targeting, in any vertical really. But I think people will value a lot of the human experiences as well. You know, we've gone from a period of like Zoom all the things, and now it's like get back together with all the things. And so there are cycles, and you just have to be like one cycle ahead, or just like a close follower to some cycles, and you can do all right. but you got to just make sure you're coming from the right place, especially if you plan on doing it for the next 12 years of your life.
I think a useful heuristic is if something's easy and has a very quick payoff, it's probably not a very durable advantage of any sort, because everybody else is going to have the same things. And this is like from the Seth Godin book, The Dip. It's like whatever is really difficult and sucks to grind through, once you're on the other side of that thing, like building an enduring brand or having like really high trust relationships with customers, those things are now really difficult for people to replicate, because it's now the obstacle in the way of the people trying to do what you do. And so oftentimes, like a useful heuristic, it's like, okay, what is the more difficult thing to do now that is going to have the best payoff in terms of customer trust on a 10-year time horizon? Like those are the things, especially in today where everybody's looking for hacks and workarounds and all the things, like even just going back to the first question, like on the boring data basics, like the eat your vegetables type of things, like it is a grind, and it's like doesn't have a fast payoff, and it's not exciting, but that's why most companies don't want to do it. And so I think it's just like a useful thing, like whatever is easy and fast is probably like not very sustainable or durable.
Take advantage of that as a founder too, because you get a lot of leeway to just use your own intuition to do things that you don't necessarily have to prove for a very long time. And so use that as air cover to do the things that you think are right, because long term, most other companies, especially smaller startups that are starting really quickly and leveraging AI to grow really quick, don't have the ability to have that longevity or make those sacrifices or put in that same time and effort that you have that intuition go do. So for many of you that are kind of on the earlier side, think about one or two things that you can do that you probably maybe get like a little bit of joy from or still enjoy doing, that if you were to do it 100 times, 1,000 times, no one else would probably try it, but there's some kind of payoff in the end, because likely that's where you're building a moat, because most people are going to try to find the next great signal, that Clay releases, right? Which can work for a period of time, right? Take advantage of that.
But that is exactly what we were chatting. Like, it's going to work for a period of time, and then you're going to have to actually.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I think like this is such an important thing. I think even like as you build all this brand and community motion, you're not gonna see the results. Like it's gonna feel like a ton of work, but over time, as you compound it, I think that's when you see the actual impact. And
it's
I think
weird though, because sometimes like when you changed a whole bunch of things in your like initial outbound motion, you saw like a 3x, 4x spike in conversions almost right away. So it's weird because like I agree with you.
But I'm mostly saying like on the community and brand side, like talking to these guys and like spending time with partners. A lot of the times you won't see the immediate impact, but over time,
Because I think there's some things on the data side where you immediately see the impact.
100%.
But that was a bitch. Like
True.
like building the data model to scrape and find mobile phone numbers for all of these customers was like it was like a 4-month-long endeavor of like our data team just beating their heads against the wall, and then we figured it out, and now you guys do it out of the box easily. So,
So then it's not alpha anymore?
yeah, it's
It's like a baseline. Like this is actually true. Like this is true in both our platforms. Is that yes, you're gonna want that baseline, because otherwise, why does your competitor have it? But what does that enable you to do? It's the second order effects of to invest in things like community and otherwise, and then this all compounds, and then the outbound and the basics start working better as well.
A good example in the owner context is we do
Just need to get a microphone over there.
Oh.
For someone.
For who? For me? No. Can you hear me?
For you, Bruno.
Okay. A good example of this in the owner context is we do month-to-month contracts, and especially in the early days, like I joined owner at 2 million ARR. Month-to-month contracts meant we had a lot of churn, and it put so much more pressure on us to deliver a good customer outcome and be picky about who we worked with, and it for sure was much harder in the short term, but that has compounded trust with our market, and it forced us to be so much more customer centric, because any customer could leave at any point. We make it shockingly easy to actually move off of owner, so that there is good word of mouth. And so like when people complain about us on Facebook or something, like owner didn't really work, but like I just went back to my old thing, like They don't flame us like they flame our competitors who locked them in for a 12-month contract. Now they're on their Better Business Bureau page, and like all their reviews are horrible on Trustpilot and this stuff. And so it was way harder up front, but now it is such a big advantage. And it's actually forced some of our competitors now to offer month to month, and we know that it's causing them pain. And so there's these examples sort of all over of trying to do the like difficult short-term thing.
That method resonates very well because we're month to month. We've been month to month since the start. There's other people in the space that force people into 2-year contracts, 3-year contracts. They will come after the people that don't pay them if they're under contract. And long term, it might look good on paper, it might look good on NDR, might all those things, but you're not forced to sometimes focus on the hard truths of your product sucking or things breaking or you failing to deliver on a promise. And so that month to month does do that. And so I'm a big proponent of that. It's much harder to do short term. And yeah, if you can stomach it, I would recommend it because that product feedback is inevitably what will make you a great company. And so you're just forcing that early on yourself, even if it's painful. I remember we put an export button like right on the main data table. Now, we wired it so that if you click it, that it puts a little signal on their Salesforce account. So we're going to call you and say, hey, what's up, Kyle? Where are you trying to go? What's up? But we didn't hold it hostage, right? Which is different than other platforms. So, yeah.
And it's counter to the MBA brain.
Right.
Like everybody
why would you
like,
make it easy
oh
to
no,
read?
just like 12-month contracts. So your churn gets better immediately.
Well, with that, we have a few minutes for questions. So we'd love to see if anyone has some questions here. And I'll try and do it.
Given all the noise out there and the ease of sending out 1 million phone calls with robots or emails and things like that, any success with gifting or physical mail or anything else like physical to accompany cold calling?
Yes, for sure. Yeah, direct mail has been quite successful for us because again, it stands out and our competitors aren't doing it. And again, you have to like, we were doing it and we thought it worked and we kept doing it. And now that we have the data because we're doing proper holdout tests, we can see that it is actually a really material driver. But again, it was super expensive and it's like such a long testing feedback loop. So it's really easy to be like, this is like $100,000 every like 2 months. And it's just like, we have no idea if it's working and we can't tweak it. It's slow to tweak, but like we kept doing it because we had confidence in it as a channel, so that's working well. Organic is working really well for us, like a big YouTube and Instagram presence, because that's where our buyers are. Now we're doing more in-person community stuff, but again, like, it's hard to measure, but we are confident in it. So those things are working.
I think the phone calls still work really well though, because to your point earlier, you can't legally just robocall a bunch of cell numbers. Like you can to the business line, but there actually are rules against it for like an owner's cell number. So as email saturation just continues to go up and up, which has never worked that well in local anyways, I think phone calling continues to be a good option. Field services for other companies, field visits for other companies continues to be a good option as well, because those are things that just take longer to saturate because you can't throw robots at them.
Yeah, we see. We have like a few. We've seen a few interesting tactics. I think like similar to how can you find the alpha on even on these like other channels. We see companies that they have robust direct mail motions, but how can you take it to the next level? Like for example, people see this company has this address. This is more of like a B2B point of view, but like how can you actually see if that person actually lives there? Then you can identify what they mention on specific channels, then really personalize the gift. One thing that we do, which is like very unique to Clay, is like as you join as a partner, we actually hire like a artist in Brooklyn that makes your own version of a Clay figurine, then sends it over to you. So like how can you find these like unique different moments then you can actually build a brand connection and affinity with these people. So yeah, how can you take it to the next level there?
Just a really quick point there about how like local's different again. Like you mentioned the addresses. Like it's interesting in restaurants because you could send to the restaurant address, but what if it's a multi-location group? What if it's part of a hospitality group that actually does have a corporate office, which is pretty rare? Are you sending it to the owner's house? Like, what are you doing here, and what is the conversion across these different channels? It's just such a messy data world as well.
Yeah.
I still go back to, you know, especially like in our market, just if there's a channel that works, sometimes rather than finding like a new channel or a new method or some other shiny object, just figure out ways to do more of what's working. So for us, calling works great. We talk to them with people, no AI. We just say hi, and they say hi. And then we say, use software. They go, I don't know, maybe I do, maybe I don't. You have some time. Like, a lot of people try to overcomplicate some of the most simple things. And I would just advise, like, if you're a founder, do all those calls yourself first. Go make your 100 things. A lot of people are like, I don't know, I do 50 calls a day. I'm like, come on, man. Like, you should be doing 200 to 300 if you're serious. You know, that's what our SDRs are doing. You know, so it's like, you have to like really do it right, do more of it. Don't try to keep finding that next shiny thing. It's sometimes fun, and sometimes it may work, but ultimately, just do what's repeatable.
Well, with that, we're at time. Thank you all to the panelists, and thank you to the audience. Enjoy the happy hour.
Thank you.